Good evening, Batman.
What?
What's happening?
Nothing, man. How you doing?
Living the dream, my friend. Living the dream.
We're squeezing this in this week.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
We had the holiday, and then Tuesday night you had a prior engagement that you couldn't remember.
I completely
To the
forgot.
last, you were like, "Oh snap!"
Yep. Sorry.
And then Wednesday night I do my podcast, my other podcast, and then tonight. And truth be told, as we wait for people to come in, I just remembered it at like 7 minutes to 8. Snap.
Oh, snap. Back against the wall.
And I didn't even see a text saying you couldn't get in.
I know. Well, that's because you weren't on, but yeah. I was trying to get in and you were not there. You were not there.
Man. So
go ahead.
What's the weather up there today, my friend?
Wet. Snowy, cold, crunchy. This morning I woke up to snow. It was wet snow. My sidewalk was pleasantly surprised. My sidewalk was shoveled, and no one in the house did it. So I think it was my neighbor, Mark Chapdelaine. Shout out to my neighbor who's now away.
Out. That's right. Shout out. Yep.
Pretty sure it was him, but I do help him too sometimes, but he's just way earlier than I am. So he beats me most times. Yet it's cold and it's not pleasant right now. It's grumpy. Outside.
Yeah. All right. I don't have to tell you what the weather is down here.
Yeah, the 85, a little bit, maybe a little humid today, maybe.
No humidity. That will come back in May. That'll make an appearance back in May.
I have got to figure out my life. I got to get out of here. Well, and I'm sure a lot of people that watch this are going to be like, goodbye.
Speaking of getting out of there, I came across an article today that was very interesting in regard to people leaving Massachusetts and going to New Hampshire and Florida.
Interesting. Not surprising. Not surprising.
No, and hopefully it's the right-minded people that come to Florida. And I say that jokingly, but I also say it because people that vote for the policies that are in their towns, so we can bring it to the lowest level of politics, is town level, right?
Mm-hmm.
People that vote for the policies that affect them to the point where I can't live here anymore because it's too expensive, which is usually one of the big reasons people leave. It's getting too expensive here. And that is what the article stated, that Massachusetts is becoming too expensive because you're paying for everything and you're paying for other people, right? That aren't paying back into it. So people are leaving. It's just, don't leave the state that made you leave and vote the same way in another state. Like, you come to a state like Florida because it's run well, because it's run by the right people, in my opinion, right? And it's run in a proper way where we're not becoming bankrupt just to be a citizen of this state.
Yeah, we have. I think that's certainly tax. They used to call us Taxachusetts, and then you hear about New York has higher taxes than California, but that doesn't relieve Massachusetts from being overly taxed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Excise tax is like the biggest scam on the planet. That's just one example. But then there's these crafty things. I don't know if they do this down in Florida or any other states, but the crafty things they do up here is they do things like increase fees, create what they call enterprise funds. And
like they're doing in Winthrop?
Right. And we can touch on that if necessary. But the point being, costs go up and fees go up and people are getting squeezed out. I mean, I will say this, Scott, that the biggest problem is housing. And so if we want to talk about policies that impact the gentrification of a town or a city, use variances or the ability to simply apply for a use variance is one issue, where a developer can just go before a zoning board and apply for a use variance, to get maybe a taller building, to get a little bit of a reduction on the setback from the connecting property lines. There's all kinds of things they're asking for in these variances. Maybe they want to be able to put a spire on a building or something, and to only have to go to a zoning board and appeal and have I think it's 3 or 5 people on the board make that decision, makes it too easy to build what we're seeing now here in Winthrop, the Cambridge Special, the micro condo, and that brings more people, and it just drives up housing. Housing is just getting way too expensive. That's another problem.
Yeah. But I mean, the housing's expensive everywhere in a sense, but don't leave the state that drove you out and expect to vote for the same policies in the state that you ran to. That's not the definition of mental illness, doing something repetitively.
Same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Yeah, it's not the definition of mental illness. It's the definition of insanity.
Yes, that's it.
Keep doing the same thing over and over and expect this different result.
Right.
Well, you're not going to get that in Florida. I have a friend of mine whose wife refuses from up north. I'm not going to say Massachusetts. It's either Massachusetts or New Hampshire, that area, who refuses to come to Florida because it's full of MAGA hats and rebel flags. Now that is a fucking MSNBC watcher if I've ever seen one. MAGA like hats? That's their impression of Florida. It's full of rebel flags and MAGA hats. I'm like, really? Dude's like, yeah, she's convinced. He wants to come here. But she is so brainwashed to think that this state is like full of lunatic conservatives that she doesn't even want. Nope, I'm not going to Florida. It's like, then wallow in your mire.
Well, I can vouch for it. I was just down there a few weeks ago, and I didn't see a single rebel flag or a single MAGA hat. Not one.
You don't. Okay, you want to go to Jacksonville, into deep parts of Jacksonville? You might see that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
But you're not going to see it in Boca or Del Rey or, I can go down the line of South Florida. You're not going to see that. There's people that vote Democrat down here. But this is the way they think. This is the way they're taught.
It wasn't that long ago that Florida was almost a swing. I mean, Bush-Gore race, right? That was that had to go to a recount.
Yeah,
hanging Chad.
But this dude's wife is convinced. I'm not going to. So what does that tell you? Like, what does that tell you? Now, I say I would never go back to Massachusetts to live because of the weather.
Right.
Because I'm not a big fan of the politics, right? But it's not scaring. I wouldn't live in the city of Boston.
No.
Only because that's congested to no end, and it's just not the Boston I knew when I grew up in.
Well, it's a lot more expensive too. It's so hard to live in the city with. It's just my uncle owns a 3-decker on Jeffrey's Point in East Boston.
Yeah.
Bought it for 14 grand something, $14,000 100 years ago. But it's in good shape, but it could use some updating. And they're offering them $2.5 million for it. I mean, so
my father's house in West Medford, constantly getting offers, constantly. They don't even care that the house is 112 years old. Constantly getting offers. Yeah.
Everybody wants to develop. They want to build. They want to flip. They want to make money.
So I just want to touch on this. I saw this on one of the Facebook groups, the Winthrop. Not sure which one. And it was a post by somebody who owns a business down the center. And the post said, just a concerned citizen concerned about no freaking signs down the center for parking. People parking down there all day. There's no 1 hour parking signs and nothing's being enforced. I know I won't be there much longer, but there's a sign in front of some VIP's store with no consideration for others. We have plenty of parking lots. So I noticed that when I went down there. Now, that's the second person that has mentioned the parking. Somebody else mentioned that they had witnessed a person park in front of CVS, and then I don't know how far they watched them, but they walked to the Somerset apartments. And then they came back later, and the car was still there that night. So you get that, right? People parking there overnight.
In front of or behind?
In front of CVS, like those parking spots right there.
That actually say no parking? Because the big trucks make the turn? Or
there's parking spots. So not in front of CVS. There's a couple that you could park at, then you go a little further down. So I think they were considering that. Okay. I think the bank is next to it, right? So you got those little parking. In front of Christopher's, there's a couple of parking spots, right?
Yep.
And they just, and the car was there later that night. So their plan of whatever their plan was for, we want more foot traffic down there. It's causing a problem for businesses. And the Somerset, I think, doesn't really help that much either.
Yes.
Because people visit, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep. There's certainly going to be some trouble there too. But honestly, I haven't. Listen, I'm not the best judge. I don't go down. I walk down there most times, but when I drive through, I've always been able to find a spot. I have to be honest. Now, I also have seen illegally parked cars not get tagged. So I'm not going to I'm not going to say that this person's not having that experience, because I'm sure it's happening.
Yeah, this is a business owner. I know that. And they just kind of, and this person never usually says much. Pretty laid back. So, when that happens. So let's get into something that I find extremely confusing in Winthrop. Maybe you can help straighten this out for me. So we have a tree department, right? I'm asking you, we have a tree department, right?
We do.
Okay.
We do. We have a tree department, tree committee, tree this, tree that. Yep.
We have a tree department. There's a tree committee? Is there a tree committee?
There's a tree committee.
Okay. Then we have the Winthrop Loves Trees group, and then the Winthrop Loves Trees and Grow 501c3,
3C, C3,
3C,
whatever it is.
Right? Which is a not-for-profit designation.
Correct.
So they not as recent as current recent, but months back, I saw that they got money from the Winthrop Foundation for $70,000. Right? This Winthrop Loves Trees and Grow. Not for profit, got $70,000 to plant trees. Now, my understanding is they planted a few, and this is just the information I've gathered. They sat on the money for a little bit, and then they all of a sudden opened up and bought some trees and planted them down the landing, I believe. Right? And from what I understand, they weren't exactly the correct trees.
When you say, do you mean
the Winthrop,
what was there, or what kind of trees? Why are they not the correct trees?
I was told that like the trees down the center are they're not spaced properly. They're supposed to be 50 feet apart, and below the center, below the earth it's winter. That was a marsh area, and the trees that are planted down the center, the roots are going to go so deep, and they are not trees that should be planted in that type of environment, meaning that marsh type environment deeper down, because roots grow down unless you get a shallow root tree, which you don't really want that because they blow over in storms. So the trees down the center are going to eventually hit a point where they're not going to grow, they're going to drown, right? That's basically what I was told from a pretty much tree expert.
Okay.
And they're supposed to be 50 feet apart, and they're not. That's going to be 20 years down the road. Whoever's going to deal with that. But you should probably plant trees that have longevity and sustainability, considering where you're planting them. You should always consider, I guess. Now, the ones down the landing, I guess there's a small issue, but that's not the issue. Why isn't the tree department, why aren't they planting trees? Why do we need a not-for-profit? In the tree committee, like what? I don't understand how you have 3 entities just for trees in a town that's a mile by a mile and a half, pretty much. And then I guess then this Winthrop Loves Trees and Grow is now asking for more money, from my understanding, a bigger chunk, more than half, more than double, I think, than what they asked for originally. Now, I don't know. I've gathered this information from people in the know. 70 grand, you can buy a lot of trees, right? And a lot of mulch and a lot of soil and a lot of, you could put that into care for trees. So I'm a little confused why they're asking for double what they already asked for within a year, I believe, or just maybe a year apart. Can you give me any background on what you know about this?
Yeah.
Because Winthrop's not a city. It's not a city.
It's not. So I am not, my knowledge doesn't go super deep, but I've got some understanding. So for starters, the tree department is the DPW. If you remember, we had a separate tree department that's now handled by the Department of Public Works through consolidation. And, we had to downsize. They don't plant the trees because they don't have it in their budget to plant the trees. Quick side note, though. This is why you're on.
Why are they the tree department?
Well, they're not called the tree department anymore, but they are responsible for the trees. I worked with Stephen Calla, I want to say over 10 years ago now, to plant 15 street trees here on Emerson Road. I organized it. I collected the money. I talked to Steve about it. He basically said, if you can get 10 to 15 trees and, we can, and get us some money, we can help you. And we talked about the figures, and it all worked out, and they planted them all. He came down here, we walked the street, and they planted them all. My point there is, rather than having a Winthrop Loves Trees committee that gets 70 grand to plant trees, people on their own streets can come together and manage this. That's just to make it happen. So my point there to you, Scott, is anyone can work with the DPW to get trees planted, but there is no budget in Winthrop budget for trees. So there's that. This Winthrop Loves Trees is the non-for-profit that.
Well, that's Winthrop Loves Trees and Grow. That's No,
the other way.
Okay,
is
good.
The 501(c)(3). Okay,
it's just Winthrop Loves Trees. Okay,
Winthrop Loves Trees and Grow. By the way, you'll find this interesting. From what I understand, I thought it was a shadow. I was wrong. I admit it. I thought it was a shadow page to throw people off because if you go on Winthrop Loves Trees, you can go back in their history and you can see some of the vitriol they were spewing at the DeLuisos with regard to the tree on Somerset Ave. I mean, so I thought, but Winthrop Loves Trees and Grow was basically people who left Winthrop Loves Trees because they weren't getting along, supposedly.
In the
Either-
grow means gardeners,
Oh, no,
something of Winthrop. Gardeners, like not revolution. Well, that would be pretty funny. Something of Winthrop. So that's they kind of jumped in. So you got the tree people and you have gardeners, people that want to plant plants.
Right.
Just
yeah. So in the end, essentially what happens is Winthrop Foundation gets money and they get it mostly from Massport. It's mostly Massport dollars, and they can put it towards any type of beautification programs in Winthrop. Winthrop Loves Trees and Grow was going to be the steward of that money, and they were going to need to prove to the foundation that they were spending the money wisely, that they were following up and taking care of the trees, because there's also not a lot of bandwidth for Steve's team to be putting the watering bags on the trees, the young trees, making sure the water bags are full, collecting the bags, pruning.
okay.
There's just not enough time. There's not enough time. So Winthrop Loves Trees is supposed to be doing that work. You're correct. We've not seen a lot of trees planted. I'm not, maybe there are more and we don't know about it. Let's be fair. In speaking to, well, let me circumvent that quickly. I've had some conversations and I've learned some things that the way the grant works is they get the money and then they have to prove to the foundation that they have to provide their books to the foundation. And from that point, the foundation makes sure that they spent the money appropriately. That's the foundation's job, is to ensure that the money was being spent for what it was intended to be spent for. They're going to have to provide receipts, ledgers, all that stuff, and they will be audited. I don't know when that's supposed to happen. I know there is a meeting coming up at the foundation. I also have a understanding that this $170,000 grant that they're asking to have, they're competing for it against other initiatives, other beautification initiatives. I'm not aware what they are. I wasn't given that information. But I will say one of the things I do know that's upset the foundation is some of this behavior that I'm assuming we're going to talk about fairly soon. We'll talk about as we go through this conversation with respect to the vitriol, the hatred, the deception, the not being transparent. And they really don't have to be. They're not a government entity, but you would think when people ask questions, people of like mind who like trees, the tree people would participate in a thoughtful conversation rather than shutting you down, blocking you out, and hating everything you have to say. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's kind of that's what I know about it.
Well, a friend of mine actually had gone to one of these meetings. Now it must be the Winthrop Loves Trees had some sort of meeting, and this Jennifer Hillman, did they break off from Winthrop Loves Trees and Grow to just?
They broke off from Winthrop Loves Trees to Winthrop Loves Trees and Grow, but I think I'm not clear. The Jennifer Hillman person, I believe, is actually part of both, but I don't have the patience or the time to look into it that deeply.
So I was told this person, a friend of mine, went to one of these meetings and asked a question to the extent of just saying, not to the extent, but it was a simple question. When are you going to start planting trees? This was before they planted them down the landing. And my friends got the response from Jennifer Hillman, "Why are you even here?"
Yeah.
That was, and he said, "Well, I think I have a right to ask a question. Like, when are you going to stop planting trees?" Like, that's not a hard question. That's a question that if you don't have an answer, you say, "You know what? We're working on it and we'll get back to you. If you want, give me your information. I'll let you know." not why are you even here? Even if the person was persistent and kept asking, you should never give somebody a response like that based on the simple fact that they just want the question answered. When are you going to start planting trees? Not like, I want to see your books. I want to see where this money went. Like, what are you doing with them? No. When are you going to stop planting trees? And the reply was, why are you even here? So
Right.
that kind of goes now hand in hand with what I believe you went through. And this is not bashing. This is just what I was told. And I have no reason to believe that my friend would lie to me about this. Like, if you're going to lie to me, you can make up a better lie than some random lady asked me, why are you even here at a meeting? Now, you had posted something recently in regard to what you just said is the vitriol and the what seems to be lack of transparency on Facebook. If you're going to make a group on Facebook based around your non-for-profit, then wouldn't you be prepared to answer questions and be a little more transparent than being leave us alone and let us just do our thing type?
Well, I'm perplexed by the whole thing, Scott, because I was posting on their page. I was trying to show what was being taken down and the vitriol that was out there. There was a lot of hate and arguing and there was very little transparency. I was accused of harassing someone by posting information in an open forum.
You know what, everybody? Get in line. Todd, it's just, listen, I'm just saying, buddy, you're a pit bull, right? You're a pit bull. You latch onto something, you're going to follow through. And some people misconstrue that as harassment, which makes no sense to me. It's not like you're threatening people and you're not out there like.
I wasn't talking to her directly. I was well, I did a little bit. I said, you can keep taking, I tagged her. I tagged Joanne because
you can do that. It's Facebook.
Right. But I wanted her to see what I was putting up so we could have at least engage in a Facebook conversation about what was going on. Because
that's this Jennifer Hillman, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The whole issue is they're all upset that the tree on Somerset Ave has come up again. It was voted on by the council to be kept. It has come up again. By the way, it may not come down. There's still potentially a procedural issue that may say, no, you can't do this. In other words, the approach that they're taking to cut that tree down may not be legitimate.
And the town needs to step in and help the residents of the people whose property is being damaged by that. That's the only recourse that I see, the only solution. The town needs to step in and help that family or that person that lives there with their problem. But that's neither here nor there right now. So go on. So that's coming up, and
well, excuse me. Yeah, so sorry. I thought I was going to do it again. So, I mean, at the end of the day, Scott, the Winthrop Loves Trees people are upset that it's even coming up. They don't want to debate it. It was the meeting this past Tuesday. I did not see the meeting, but apparently it was brought up, and apparently Joe Aiello had made mention that there may be a challenge or a problem with bringing it up again because the council had been heard already. The council heard this issue, but my understanding is because it's now being brought up by the CDICR, the Commission for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, or Inclusion and Community Relations, it can be brought up again. What should happen is the tree warden should weigh in and say the tree needs to come down, and it shouldn't even get to the council. But there's always a rule you don't know, or a workaround that someone finds, right? And then you got to go do research to figure out how they got to that workaround. But the fact of the matter is they're all upset about this tree coming down. They're mad about an ableist comment. They called members of the diversity commission crooked. I mean, is it the major insult? I don't know. I don't know what the intent was coming from the mouths of the folks making those comments on Facebook, but it's certainly not nice. It's certainly not engaging in a conversation. I made this point before. If they do nothing, which they did nothing, right? They left the tree there and they did nothing else. The plan is, obviously, when that tree comes down, to replace it with another one. The problem is, if you even get 50 years out of that tree, in 50 years, when that tree comes down, you'll have one tree just starting out. Whereas if we cut that tree down now and planted the 3 trees they were talking about, in 50 years, you'd have 3 trees at 50 years maturity. There's no compromise here, and I don't understand why. They don't seem to care about anyone else's opinions but theirs, and that's the point I was trying to make with all my posts on their page. I kept putting it back up. They kept taking it down. I'm silenced basically on Winthrop Loves Trees and Grow. I can make one comment in a given time period, and if you go
me
back,
too. Me too.
You too.
Yeah.
None of my comments were in any way attacking anybody. I want to have a conversation.
I'm curious, is that just you and me that have that filter?
Probably.
Because of what we do?
No, because
or is that a group rule? I mean, I don't mind. It's their group. I'm not offended by it, but I just found it interesting that
it's a complete defiance of their own rules too, because they bully people. They were bullying people, calling them names on their site, and then kicking people off that really didn't do that. I don't know what's happening. I don't know. I really don't think I can take people like that seriously. If they don't want to engage in a thoughtful conversation about this, I don't know what to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think this whole thing is like, this is a lot to do about trees, you know, a lot to do about trees. And so back to this grant money that I take it Jennifer Hillman is asking for, from the Winthrop Foundation that I never knew existed. I never knew it existed, but strangely enough, I just saw something on the news about, what city was it? There's a city that has like same thing, like I'll just say Brighton, like the Brighton Foundation. I wasn't aware of things like that they have these monies available to give to organizations that are, I guess, looking to benefit the or improve the town. So the Winthrop Foundation, where do their funds come from?
Mostly Massport.
Do you know what the budget is? Do you know what they get?
They get it in blocks. So they had, the last look I had, they had about a $500,000 block of money. They gave 70 to Winthrop Loves Trees, and so the remainder was like 430,000. I've not seen any other updated information on their website in terms of what's left. So you can assume there's $429,000 left.
I would imagine, yeah, they wait for people to come to them for the money, right? Or do they go out and solicit people, say, hey, we want to give you this money?
Right.
How do you know what the process is?
No, I do not know that answer.
So if nobody asks them for anything, then the money can just sit. Now, does that compile? So they get a block. What do they get it once a year? Do they get it once every 7 months?
A good question.
You know, and so if they get another 500 from that, or does Massport say you haven't spent the last 500, so we're not going to give you any more until that's spent? And then I'm sure they want to see how those finances were dispersed.
Right. You'll get the money, but then you'll have to prove it out or that you used it correctly before you can apply for more.
And from my understanding also, if you want to find out how much, or if you want to look at the books of a not-for-profit, I believe you have to go to the Massachusetts District Attorney's Office or something. Through them.
That's probably correct.
to ask for the books. And if they're not for profit, I don't think that they're private in that sense. Like, no, you can't get them. I would think you'd be able to.
Right, you can get them, but you have to go through the state. You can't get them from.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. When does the Winthrop Foundation give the next grant or the next?
Unsure. I know it's
money?
coming in the pretty near future, but I'm unsure when they're going to give out the next grant.
How many people are on that are work in the Winthrop Foundation?
Like, I want to say 5 or 6.
Okay,
5 or 6 people are on that.
Who are they chosen by, or are they volunteers? I might be asking. I'm just very interested in this. That's why I'm asking all these questions.
I know they're volunteers, but I don't know how that process plays itself out.
Right.
I don't know. Do
they have any connection to town politics, like the town manager? Is there any? Or are they a separate entity? It's like who watches over the Watchmen, like the movie said.
Right. Yeah. They're not appointed. I don't think they're appointed by anybody in Winthrop. But I could be wrong about that. I know that some of the folks on there are like, we've got former town council members on, or a former town council member on there. We have a former wife of a Viking Pride Foundation member, former Viking Pride, or he might still be the Viking Pride chair. I don't know how they put it together, though, unfortunately.
Could you find out? You probably have more access. I just find this very interesting. I didn't know they existed. I wish, it's just, hey, listen, it's a great cause. And I'm sure they're pretty frugal with how they dish out the money. I'm sure you really have to give them a good presentation to, not a presentation per se, but submit a good package to just get money like that, because they're accountable for that money, right? They're responsible for it.
They're responsible.
You know what would be a great place to plant some trees? If they knock down the old junior high, knock it down.
I knew
knock it down. You and I
knew it.
Me and Todd, my friend, my buddy, we are not on the same page.
We're not necessarily on a different page. I'm just open-minded to more options. You want not a green space. Let's be careful.
Open space.
You want an open space. I could live with an open space, but
that's what they're called, open space laws, right? In Massachusetts,
not called green space laws anymore.
No, I believe they're called open space laws, right? That's why I call it open space. And a great place to have a green place would be put some fake grass down the center over all that brick. Technology has come a long way in the artificial grass. I have a putting green in my backyard, and the stuff can last through an atomic blast, and it looks like new every day. It's been there for 3 years. The sun beats down on it, that Florida sun, the rain, the humidity in the summer, and the stuff looks perfectly green every day. Doesn't fade. They could probably make the center look a lot nicer if they did that. But anyways, I digress. I do believe knocking down that junior high and just making it an open space for the town. And I'll say this every show, buddy. Put a nice big water fountain in there. They got water running some reason, going around there anyways, right? At least that water will be accountable. There'll be no secret meter missing. The water just running, like I guess there was.
Underneath, you mean?
Yeah, wasn't there like some sort of? We had Kurt on a couple of times.
Leaky pipes all over the place, and
there was no meter. Like nobody knew how much water they were using, etc. And there was no bill. They weren't receiving a bill, I guess, or the bill was like very minimal. But, yeah, that would be a great place to take $70,000 and plant trees.
Right? That we'd like that.
Yeah. So think about it. Like how much is it to plant a tree? $1,000?
Well, you can buy a semi-mature tree. Let's start there. You can buy a semi-mature tree, depending upon the type of tree. I've seen them from a little under 300 to a little over 500 per tree. Then you got to factor in the cost to plant. Now, you had when they came here.
Your audio is getting a little.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Choppy. It's very choppy right now.
Is that better?
No. We're going to have to stop the show. Go to your settings and kind of go in and out for the audio thing again.
Yeah. It could be connection here. Hold on.
Sounds like a connection.
How are we doing now? Any
there
better?
You go. That's better. Yeah.
So now you've threw me off. Where was I?
We were talking about planting a tree, like $1,000 to plant a tree.
Oh yeah, yeah. So when they came here to plant 15 trees, it was basically 2 days, 2 guys per day with the backhoe. They just dug a big hole with the backhoe. They dropped the trees in, filled it in, put the bag around it, filled the bag up with water, and moved on to the next one. It was 2 days, about 2 days to get it done. So whatever that cost will give you. So figure average $250 a tree because the non-fruit bearing pears were cheaper. So 250 times 15 is what?
Your audio is messed up again.
Again?
Yeah.
Hello, 3750. No?
No. It's very choppy. This just all of a sudden happened.
Yeah, maybe I'll go out and come back in.
Well, instead of going out, go to the settings.
Go ahead.
Go to the settings. Go to the audio.
Yeah.
Right. And go to your default, and then go back to you click on audio, and audio input output.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Count to 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, I think we're good.
You think we're better?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you plant 2 trees. What did we say? 350.
Yeah, 350. It's like 3,500 or so for the purchase of the trees, and I don't know. Maybe all said and done, it was $4,500 for 15 trees.
15 trees.
Let's say I'm way off, and let's say the labor was $3,000. You're still talking $6,000 for 15 street trees.
Now, do 501c3s? Once that's established, you can have administrative fees, right? Like the person running it can pay themselves, right?
Correct.
Okay.
They can. That's legit.
So Winthrop Loves Trees is a 501c3 run by Jennifer Hillman, right?
Correct.
So there's a chance she's paying herself.
Yeah, and we if we want, when the audit's done, we can have access to, we can get that anyway from the state, but the audit's not done yet. So we don't know. Once the audit's done, it's filed with the state.
Yeah.
And then we'd have to do a FOIA from the state to do a FOIA. Speak English, don't you? Apply for a FOIA from the state in order to get our own look at the accounting of their funds and who paid who for what and did what.
Right. I'm not making like issue of that because it's legal. But if the Winthrop Foundation is giving money to an organization to plant trees, this is just me. I would probably, and I think they got this 70,000 months and months ago. You would think that we would probably see more action on that, right? And so it'd be interesting to see out of the 70 how much people are getting paid from the Winthrop Loves Trees not-for-profit. Which, we're not bringing up anything that is, this is all legal. Like, people have a right to know these things, correct? And
Of course they do.
she might be like, that's none of your business, or maybe she's not. I don't know the woman. I can't really speak. I haven't, when I've talked to, haven't really heard one way or another, but I did. But it would just be interesting to see who's getting paid. And I think that helps if you're going to be asking for money too. Well, how much of that money is going to administrative fees?
Right.
Like I stopped giving to the Susan B. Corman breast cancer.
Yep.
So my first wife passed away from breast cancer. And so I was really, like, oh, I got caught up in it and donating and fundraising. And then I did my homework. Well, somebody actually led me in that direction. And I realized that the people running that place, I'm making like $250,000 a year.
Yep.
It's like, why would you, the money's supposed to go to research, right? And then you look at how much actually goes to research. That's all accessible on the internet. You look at how much, is really going to, out of your dollar, how much goes to research. And it's like, really? This is a corporation. This isn't so I cut ties with them and walked away. So that's why I'm very wary of not-for-profits.
Yeah. You can be, and at times I think you should be, right? I mean,
Well, St. Jude's is like, that place is like gold, right? You look at how much, because I did that when I was with Customs and Border Protection, U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Every year, I volunteered to go around and basically, it was like all the officers can give them the form. You collect the form, and they can give X amount percentage or one lump sum to the charity of their choice. And in doing that, you really kind of look into what each organization is about. It gives you a little brief rundown. Then you can just Google it, and then you find, that's where I found out a lot of things about these not-for-profits, and a lot of them they're just corporations. But St. Jude's is like, if you give $1, I'm just going to say like 60 cents of that dollar goes to what it's supposed to go to. Whereas maybe Susan B. Corman, it's like 30 cents. And 70 cents goes to administrative fees.
Well, and let's say if there's someone's taking money out of there for pay, that's fine. If it's, it should be commensurate with the amount of work. I mean, if someone's running around, making sure all the tree bags are full of water, they're doing the upkeep of these new trees to get them past the immature stage or semi-mature stage to the mature stage, people should be paid. I don't have any clue about what's being done, which is again why, in fact, we got a little pushback on one of the groups, and I invited the young woman who was arguing with me about this stuff to come on the show and make the points. One of her points, just off the cuff here, was talking about how the trees down the center, that there's not enough green there. There's not enough trees there, that it was done wrong. She had a lot to say about what was going on in the middle where the Samuels is. I'd love to have her come on here and say more and tell us what she thinks. Feedback is good. I happen to think I happen to agree with her that, for one thing, that the tables that they put down there are kind of weird looking and not very comfortable. But there's like you said, Scott, there's a lot of cement where we should have grass. Now, when the trees grow in, they are going to shade the concrete. When those trees mature, they're going to grow in. It'll look really nice. It will. But it would look a lot nicer if there was grass in the middle there.
Or even, like I said, or fake grass, where a lot of schools, a lot of elementary schools, especially down in Florida, have gone to that. It's no maintenance, right? And kids can play in it. You can get different thicknesses, of the grass. And that's what they use for their playgrounds down here because of the rain, and there's drainage that's built in with these things when you have it put down. It's really functional. It's very functional. And I think something like that down the center would have been, and maybe it's not out of the question. Someday they'll do it. And then in the wintertime, they put a tree up there. It looks nicer when it's on green grass than it does on cement. It looks even nicer when there's ornaments on a tree. Which, if you know what I mean. So
I do.
All right. What are you looking at there? You researching something?
I'm just, well, I was kinda, but it's not. I'm looking for something and I'm not finding it.
All right. Hey, just to kind of, we're getting up on an hour here. This is a fast hour, dude.
Went by quick.
Wow. Like, I just looked up and like, holy smokes.
51:33.
Yeah.
35.
So, just to kind of backtrack, we kind of straightened it out for me. You straightened it out for me. The tree department, which is not the tree department, it's part of the DPW, but there's they're responsible, and then the tree committee. There's a tree committee. Did we ever? Is there a tree committee? I don't know if we ever got to that.
Well, there is a tree committee.
Okay, what do they do?
They meet and talk,
just like every other group of every other committee on the Winthrop. They meet and talk, and they don't do minutes.
I don't. Yeah, right? I don't know what else they do, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I have something in my notes here. The last minutes you'll find posted. June 27th, 2022. I think that has to do with had something to do with trees. Where are the minutes? The committees have some recording minutes. I'll get back to that next week. I just jotted that down. So we don't know what the tree committee does. Hopefully we find out by next week. Winthrop Loves Trees is asking for more money. What did they do with the last money? They planted some
we need
trees.
To know what they did with the last.
Well, I mean, money. It would be nice to know. It would be nice to know, right? Hey, listen, if you want to build support, right? If you want to have the people on your side, then you put it out there. Hey, look what we're doing. Step up and put it. Look at what we're doing. Show pictures of trees being planted. You will get everybody's support. That's a guarantee. But when you say it's none of your business, or you're just being kind of non-transparent with what's going on, right. Which is, listen, that's in perception. Perception is much stronger than reality. Right? Yeah. Perception is much stronger than reality. People's perceptions really dictate how they act toward things or respond to things. And the perception that I'm getting from this Winthrop Loves Trees and Jennifer Hillman's responses to these things, to questions, or being questioned, or being, kind of asked to put something out there, is very, my perception is that she's very resistant to that. And why? Right? That's the natural question. Why? If I came and asked you, when are you going to stop planting trees? Why would you say to me, what are you even doing here? Unless you're just power hungry or power crazy, right? No, and you're like, this is my meeting. This is my group. I do what I want, blah, blah, blah. A bad way to run a not-for-profit.
They don't.
I'm not saying that's what she's doing.
They want consensus. No, I'm going to kind of say that. I don't want to cast aspersions here, but what else can it be to shut down the conversation? I don't care that the Somerset tree issue was already settled. It wasn't settled satisfactorily to the majority of the people on the street, or the community for that matter. Right. And it was arrogant to say, it's still arrogant to say, they're still saying the solution to force people across the street, force handicapped people to cross the street to get around that tree is not acceptable in my opinion.
Right.
So whatever. I mean, I don't want to get too crazy here, but
yeah, I got you. So,
but anyway, yeah.
And next week, I want to talk about something. I want to bring something up next week. I had talked to somebody who had said that some years back there was a number put out there, an amount to tear down the junior high, and I think the auditorium, which is so outdated, it would cost just as much to get that thing up and running as it would to tear it down. Right.
That very well could be true.
And I'm going to maybe talk about that next week. And I guess they're talking about doing a survey of the junior high. What is there to survey? Like, why hasn't it been surveyed? How many times has the junior high been surveyed in 10 years?
That's a good question.
How many times? We need a survey.
Survey says?
Well, just tear it down. And then once it's flat, you can get all the surveys you want. And then if you want to sell the land later, sell it. Right? But tear it down first.
I don't know. That's a huge cost. It's multi-million-dollar because there's a ton of asbestos in that building too.
No, from what I understand, the asbestos is only in the. Yeah, there's not a lot in there. There's not as much as we think. From what I understand, it might be the tiles on the floor. That's it. But those can be contained. You know what I mean? But there's none. It's all cement. The place is all cement. So
they probably got a lot of it out. But yeah, no. I'm with you to at least get it down, but my understanding is it's a huge cost. And I think they're trying to say, look, there are still far too many people who think we can develop our way out of our financial problems. We can't.
That spot is not going to get them out of.
Well, and let me say that it's possible, but it's only possible if we make adjustments to the way we conduct our daily business. And I'm talking mostly about payroll. You can't.
Yeah.
Every time you build a building, let's say it puts another $100,000 into the budget in tax. Let's say it puts $1 million back into the budget in property taxes. That $1 million has to be spread out not just amongst employees pay, which it really doesn't have to be, but it always is. But so it always goes to employee pay. But it should also go to each department for bringing back programs, buying new trucks for the DPW, maybe giving them an extra head count that they need. But it just doesn't happen because when the new money comes in, let's say you're in your first year of you just settled your contract, you're in year 1. And let's say new money comes in year 2. By year 3, they're already talking about, look at all that new money.
Yeah.
We want it. We want it. And you can't blame them, but that's not a business discussion.
Right.
Which is why I don't understand why anyone years ago ever agreed to let people who don't run businesses sit at the table to discuss business. It does not make sense to me.
All right. So we're going to be back Monday.
Yeah. Before we go, though, because you skipped me at the front end, I want to talk about the school budget real quick.
Okay, I was going to say we're going to talk about that probably more on Monday, but bring it up, please.
Yeah,
yes.
let's and this is good this will be my take us out, because it's always what I say is my big thing, as everybody knows, is get involved locally. And when I say get involved locally, I really say look at the school's budget. It is the biggest percentage of all the departments by far. It is a lot of money, and there's a lot going on with it, and it's confusing, and you may not have a kid in the system, but you're still paying for it. So don't you think you want to know what's happening?
Yep. That's right.
I'll give you some insights. So they've had the process has gotten underway. So just so everybody knows, they start the process early in the new year, but their fiscal year is July. So they got to get this all done before July 1st. And so all this in the schools, all the school buildings are in the principals or the building leaders are putting their budgets together based upon feedback from their employees. And they build two budgets, or maybe 3. The dream, so everything we want, bring back this language, bring back this curriculum, bring back that. That's the the pie in the sky. Then there's the level funded budget, and then there's a level services budget. That's where we always play. And we're usually at the level funded budget. Well, maybe it's 50-50. Maybe it's 50% of the time we get a level funded budget, which means even though you're trying to provide level services for the next year, because costs went up, you're not level serviced, because when you're level funded, you're getting the same number from the previous year. So it doesn't account for the cost increases. Level serviced means you're getting enough money to deliver the exact same services that you got the previous year. So a quick example, when you give a raise and and the budget goes up, you're paying more for level services, but you're not getting more programs. You're just paying more for the same people.
Right.
You're not getting any additional value. Okay. So one of the things that's interesting this year, parents are getting surveys. I think surveys should go out to the entire taxpayer base. I think people should know that there are meetings coming up where you can participate. I don't know where the dates are because they're not in here yet, but surveys were sent out to the parent, or surveys will be sent out to the parents. They want to get your input. Please respond to these. Please provide input into what you want. Otherwise, then they're not even going to have an argument to make to say, well, give us some of that budget to make Spanish contiguous from elementary school through high school instead of taking a break during middle school. Maybe we could at least do that, right? So this is where Lisa Howard says, over the past 4 to 5 years, the school department has presented a needs-based budget, okay, to the town, and ended up with a level service budget. So we talked about that. And then we present what our students need in order to be provided with an equitable, there's that word, education in the surrounding communities. We will continue to fight for that and advocate for that. I take issue with that statement simply because we really don't fight for what the kids need. If you sit in those meetings, the kids aren't getting what they need. They're fighting over how much of money they don't have they're going to give in raises. That is the majority of the discussion. When it's not a contract year, then they're fighting over where we're going to find the money to make our contractual demands. So we'll talk more about this, but my point there is get involved, pay attention, please look at it. If you care at all about your taxes and your community, we need you to pay attention, please, begging you.
And pay attention to the activist teachers in the middle school. Because they are that you're paying for. Exactly. These activist teachers need to be held accountable. The only people that can make them accountable are parents and taxpayers.
That's right.
That's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
Stone Cold said so. And I think we're having Kurt Monday too, you know.
Yeah, Kurt was supposed to be on Monday, then we moved it to Tuesday, then we moved, and then he'll be on Monday. We'll make sure he gets on.
We're bringing Kurt on. He's got, by the way, I watched the Bill Schmidt meeting. Board of Health meeting. Remind me. We got to talk about that next week.
I definitely want to know. If you can get clips from it or whatever, get some sound bites. Let's make this.
Kurt made a video. I don't know if he sent it to you, but I'll send it to you.
No, he didn't. But all right, so good. We got some good stuff coming up Monday night. All right, buddy. Well, you want to take it out like you do?
Yeah, guys, pay attention. All politics is local, and again. Just another reminder about school meetings are coming up. Go online, look them up, show up, call up, respond to surveys. Thank you for being part of this. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for paying attention. Hopefully, by the way, since we are becoming a kinder, gentler Winthrop Votes, at least I hope we are, because that really has been our intent the whole time, is to really engage in conversation. And yeah, it got heated at times, but hopefully we're getting more people to at least watch. I hope.
Well, it's the nature of the beast. Live streaming, it's live. As it says, live streaming. Everything we say is from the heart. It's sometimes it's off the cuff. Sometimes we're right. Sometimes we're wrong. Sometimes I look back and like, well, I probably shouldn't have ranted that much, but it is what it is, and that's what makes the show, I think, interesting. Sometimes it might be a train wreck to some, but some people like watching train wrecks. But like Todd said, all politics starts at the local level, and pay attention, especially to the schools. especially to the schools. And like I said, thank you for watching. If you liked what you watched, you liked what you saw, and forward it, share it, tell people about it. And if you didn't like it, well, thanks for listening and watching this long. Appreciate that.
Must have been painful.
Yeah. And we will see you next Monday night in 4 days.
4 days. Have a good week.